Mazzy Johnson, and I'm here with my dad, Jerry Johnson, to discuss The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger.
Hi.
Hi.
So, tell me a little bit about the book.
So, Holden Caulfield is the main character of this book, and he narrates the book, so you're seeing everything from his perspective. And so you're pretty much taking a walk through life with him. He's been struggling with his education, so really you're seeing everything after he leaves his school. And so you're in the city of New York with him, and he travels to different places, and he meets many people.
So, I guess what's the significance of the story?
So I think
Like, what does it mean?
biggest meaning to grab from the book, or like the theme of the book, is that Holden is trying to cover up his loneliness or lack of confidence by trying to be somebody that he's not. And you can see multiple examples as you read through the book.
Do you have any examples that you want to point out specifically, or we can come back to that?
Yeah, I have an example.
Okay.
So there's this moment in the book where Holden goes to a hotel and he gets his own hotel room, and he pretty much gets a prostitute for himself. And so he's a virgin, so this is really uncomfortable for him, and that also contributes to the theme in my eyes, because he's really doing something that he probably wouldn't do, but because everybody else in society, like all of the higher class people, would probably get a prostitute that's a man, so he probably wants to follow up on that too. So anyways, so in chapter 13, he's in this situation where he's with this prostitute, and he's just talking with her, trying to get away from the idea of doing anything with her, because you can tell that he's uncomfortable about everything. So then he doesn't really get to know her at all, and she eventually just leaves. And so right at the end of chapter 13, on 110, the next chapter begins with, after old Sonny was gone, I sat in the chair for a while and smoked a couple of cigarettes. So he refers to her as old Sonny, and I thought that was pretty funny because he doesn't know her at all, and he's talking about her like they were pretty good friends. And so you can tell that he's trying to be somebody he's not by referring to someone as his friend, and you can kind of tell about his loneliness too, because you usually would refer to somebody as like that kind of nickname only if you were closer friends with them. And I think that little detail reminds me of The Great Gatsby too, because Jay Gatsby referred to pretty much everybody that he met as old sport.
Okay. So it has another, it reminds you of another book as well.
Yeah. So actually The Great Gatsby shows up in this book, and he says, I was crazy about The Great Gatsby, old sport, that killed me. So he actually refers to the phrase old sport that Jay Gatsby used, and I thought that might have something to do with his wanting to call people like old Sally or old Luce, like he says once in this book. And so he might have been inspired by that, so he might be trying to like look at what Jay Gatsby is doing, trying to get like an influence from him and get an idea of what he should do, just like Jay Gatsby did when Jay was trying to fit in with the crowd by holding parties and everything. Then Holden is trying to fit in with society like he.
Is Holden a wealthy individual? His family?
As far as I know, it seems like he isn't very wealthy at all, but he did have money for himself throughout the book, but I'm not sure if his family was wealthy.
Okay. Like, what about this book is interesting?
I thought it was very interesting how Holden narrated the story, because you see everything through his eyes, and so it was also interesting how close he was to my age. So then I identified with him more because he's very sarcastic throughout the book. So that was interesting to me because I could actually relate to the character, and usually I can't really do that in books I read. And this time I could, so that interested me a lot.
Okay, so we talked about it relating to how it relates to your life. We talked about how it relates to another book. And kind of we talked about how it relates to a world theme or something that happens in the world today. So how would it relate to things that happen in your world that you live in, like in the high school or things like that, or even your family or things like that?
So like in the world today, and like really in high school, people find it hard to express themselves. Like everybody uses the phrase these days as to be yourself, and people always try to do that, but you can tell that they're not doing that. They're trying to just fit into society's rules by acting just as everybody else would, trying to go along with the flow, and nobody goes against the grain anymore. So you can really see that with what Holden does, because he doesn't really do his own thing. He's just trying to do what everybody else is doing.
So he's just trying to be cool like everybody else.
Yeah.
Is there any parts in the book where he's not cool? Or does
Well,
it feel cool?
you can really just tell throughout the book that he's not a very cool person. Like, he doesn't have any, like, very, very close friends. Like, he has his 2 roommates in his old school that he was, friends with, but you could tell that they, like, weren't all that close. They wouldn't hang out, like, regularly. But there is one part in this book where he tries to act like he's cool. He says, I'm sorry, this is gonna be awkward, but he says on page 61, "Women kill me, they really do. I don't mean I'm oversexed or anything like that, although I am quite sexy. I just like them, I mean." So I think that he's trying to be kind of cool in this part, because he's trying to boost up his confidence, you know, get a little pride in himself, but really you can tell that maybe he's just trying to, like, shadow the fact that he is lonely and that he doesn't have very much confidence, and so he's trying to give himself, like, higher nicknames to feel better about himself.
Okay. Is there anything that's unique about the writing, about the way Salinger writes?
So there's very informal diction that Holden uses, so that has something unique about it. It's very slang, and so that's what makes it very unique to me, because you get really who he is, and I think even the informal diction in here contributes to the theme, because he's trying to cover up being himself. So I'm not really sure if he actually speaks like that, but he might be speaking like that just because everybody else in society is speaking like that, so that's interesting.
Okay, so how does that support the meaning of the book when Salinger writes like that?
The diction used supports it because, like, he's trying to cover up who he is. So I think maybe the slang is trying to cover up who he is really inside, because the slang used in here, like all the swearing and all the like phrases that relate to the time period that he's in, might be just him trying to fit in with everybody else who's talking like that.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about the book? How would or maybe a better question is, how would you recommend it to your friends or family, and why?
I would really recommend this book to anybody, but more specifically people around my age, because I think they could learn a lot from Holden. Like, yes, it's a funny book, and yes, it's very sarcastic, and it's something to laugh about and smile about, but there's also a deeper meaning behind it, and how he just is trying to fit into society and he's not being himself. So I think people my age can learn from him.
Okay. What about other Salinger books? Have you read any other J.D. Salinger books, or is it something that you would, after you read this, would you read? If you haven't read any, would you think about picking up another one?
I haven't read any other books by this author, but I think I would definitely read another by Salinger, because I really like the work.
Okay. Alright, well thanks for discussing with me today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.